I've always wanted to put a name to it because I always felt like there was something.
It's LeahMouseVlog, LeahMouseVlog, it's LeahMouse's vlog.
Good evening, everyone. There's always schmutz. All right, so feel very special because it is extremely hot outside. The air conditioner is right next to me and I didn't want you guys to have to deal with the sound from it the entire time. Like literally if I reach out, I'm touching it right now. That's how close it is. And I turned it off even though it's really hot. So you're welcome. You're probably wondering why I've gathered you all here today. For the past year plus, but at least a year, I have been heavily engrossed in some research about something due to one event that set the ball rolling. I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about this until I officially knew for sure. And let me just head this off. No, I'm not pregnant. No, I'm not engaged. I have to say that every single time. So no, it's not either of those things. But I wanted to wait until I knew for sure. But I just don't know if that day will even come because of the difficulties obtaining that step. And I don't know if I want to wait that long. I think I'm ready to talk about it now. Much like most of my videos, I haven't prepared anything. I don't have note cards. I don't have a little notepad thingy on my laptop. I don't have any notes on my phone. I'm just winging it from here. That's how I do because I feel phony if I don't. Because when I take notes and prepare and script out a video, I'm in that zone in the moment, but then when I turn the camera on, I feel like it's inauthentic because I'm reading from it instead of like emoting and reacting and thinking and speaking on the spot. So I apologize if this video is all over the place, but I am the Anacolathon queen. You know this. So if you're here, you must be okay with it, but I apologize in advance. So I have had this weird thing my whole life with fingernails. We are opening this video with a story about fingernails. I have this weird thing about fingernails. I have very short fingernails. I do not grow them out, and if I do, it's just because I haven't gotten around to cutting them yet. But I'm usually pretty good at it. I trim them, cut them down to as short as they can possibly go, about once a week. I kind of always have because I've been a piano player my whole life, and you have to have short nails to do that. But I think that this is unrelated to that. It just is happenstance that I've always been, you know, in the habit of cutting my nails short. But every time my nails get a little long, like if I let them go past a week, maybe a week and a half, that's pushing it. I'm getting the willies just thinking about it. Okay, so we're gonna talk about that in a minute too, okay? So let me just say before I continue on, I'm sorry, this is a very candid vlog. Normally I kind of let my thoughts go for entertainment purposes, right? And I try to be, well, I don't try to be, I just let my silly funny side come out just to entertain you guys, or I talk about whatever's on my mind or whatever. You know the drill. This one, I'm letting myself come out in a different way. Maybe I have before and just didn't notice it. I think I'm just really aware of it right now because I'm about to talk about it. So if you have noticed things like this before, but see, that's the thing. I haven't felt the need to do this in any other video that I know of because I haven't spoken about something that's not stressful, not necessarily anxiety provoking, but just, okay. I'm sorry, I'm really trying to get to the point. You guys know how I am, I'm sorry. So fingernails. So I have this thing where if I cut my fingernails, you know, I clip them, I have to press my tongue against my teeth like this. With every clip. And if I see, like in horror movies, sometimes they, oh man, I have goosebumps. They sometimes will have a fingernail break, you know, in a horror movie and it's like a horrific scene or whatever, you know, and it's like a thing that happens. The first time I noticed it, when I had a problem with fingernails, my own, others, doesn't matter. If someone even talks about fingernails, like I'm doing right now, I'm giving myself goosebumps, I'm getting the willies and stuff. I just can't do the fingernail thing. I noticed it first in 7th grade. science class because we had these rocks, right? And we were learning about sediments and rock formations and things like that. I didn't retain any of it, of course, but the teacher passed around these rocks and he was like, okay, we're gonna determine, I think it was like the cleavage, and the only reason I remember that is because everybody giggled and I didn't know why they were giggling because I didn't know that word back then. I am still to this day pretty naive when it comes to dirty words and phrases. I don't know. Anyway, so we had to determine that. So in order to do that, he was like, okay, now scratch this, scratch the surface of the rock with your fingernail and see what happens. You know, when we were supposed to like see how much flaked off or something, or what pattern it left, or if it came out. I don't really remember, but I just remember being incredibly geeked out by that. Everybody was doing it. Everybody was having a great time learning, scratching the rocks. And I was just like sitting there, oh, I can't do this kind of thing. And I don't think I ended up doing it to my rock because I was just so put off by the thing. So like the fingernail thing, see, I'm even doing it now. It makes my teeth hurt. That's the bottom line of this. It makes my teeth hurt physically to the point of where I have to do that thing where I have to push pressure with my tongue against my teeth, or I just do a quick like in my mouth, or I just run my tongue real quick over my teeth. It makes my teeth hurt. I did not know this was weird. Why would you? That's the thing about you being you. You are you, and that's what you know. So when it comes up against comparison to a great population of people and you realize that you are the odd one out, that's the only time you start noticing, oh, I'm weird. That's weird. That's not normal. And I'm using the terms weird and normal here very fluidly, and I'm trying to be delicate because I know a lot of people don't like those words because they're negative. They have negative connotations either way. I don't mean them that way. I'm just trying to simplify and be succinct here. So it was the same thing with driving. Logically in my head, when I learned to drive, I thought there's two pedals because I drove an automatic. I learned on an automatic. I've never driven a stick except for twice in my entire life, and I didn't do a good job. But, you know, I learned on an automatic. My mom's car was an automatic. I drive an automatic. I've driven automatics my entire life. There's two pedals, gas and brake. My brain went, well, I have 2 feet, gas and brake. So when I was learning to drive, that's how I learned how to drive. I used my right for gas, my left for brake. And I didn't think it was strange. I thought it made sense. I'm like, this is how you drive, and that's what I got used to. And it wasn't until I went to take my driving test and the guy like leaned over, like I went through all of driver's ed, all of my permit driving with my mom, everything like this. And it wasn't until I went to take my test that the instructor looked over and he's like, why are you using both feet? Like, are you seriously using your right for gas and your left for brake? And I was like, yes. Is that wrong? And that's when he told me, actually, people use their right foot for both. And my brain could not wrap this information around in any way, shape, or form. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So your left foot's just like supposed to chill down here without anything to do, but your right foot's supposed to hop back and forth. That doesn't make any sense. Like, it's easier just to go wee, 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 wee. Like, you know, why would you just have one over here? Wee, oh. Like, it's such a waste of time and it doesn't make any sense. But whatever. I still drive that way. I never corrected it, and other people pointed it out. So that's the thing. Like, someone had to point it out, and I had to go through my whole life people commenting on it and noticing it for me to realize it was strange. Otherwise, it was normal because it's what I did. So how else would I know that it's abnormal, right? So it's things like that. But the teeth thing, the fingernails, the teeth. Okay, so I didn't realize that was odd. Why would I? It's not something people talk about, even if they do experience it, right? That's a strange thing to talk about. I was scrolling through Facebook and I happened to, you know, like one of those page things that just shares without your permission, and they're like, hey, you want to join our page? Here's a sample posting from this page. Join our page, you know, like kind of thing. So I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was to the effect of the fingernails teeth pain thing. It was like something about how, you know, how difficult it is to tell people, oh, don't talk about fingernails because it hurts my teeth. And I was just like, oh, hey, cool. Like, yeah, that's a thing. And then I realized that the page was from an autism group. And I was like, I'm sure that's just a coincidence, right? Maybe just they shared it because they can relate or something. And then I looked at the comments on the thing, and lots of people were like, I'm autistic, this is a thing with autism, fingernails, teeth. And I was like, the world felt like it stopped. I was like, this has to be a coincidence, because, huh? Like, I was really confused for a second. I was just kind of like, but I'm not autistic, right? You know, like, I don't think so. That's never ever come up in like the 10 therapists that I've seen over my years. Not once has anyone said anything about autism. They've said clinical depression, they've said social anxiety disorder, they said general anxiety disorder, they've said bipolar even, which I am not, by the way. The symptoms just didn't quite line up perfectly puzzle piece wise, and it just didn't fit, and I was like, I really don't feel like that's right, dude. But I stopped seeing him kind of right away because I feel like he was just out for prescription money, if you know what I mean. But anyway, so yeah, no one said anything about that ever, and I was just like, let's think about this critically, okay? And I remember discussing it with JJ extensively, kind of at various points while I was doing research. And I found that nearly letter perfect to the T, all the videos that I watched, all the articles I read, all the symptoms bullet point listed, I took little online assessments. I know that those aren't, you know, a substitute for medical diagnosis, but I mean, they're still valid in, you know, giving you an idea of what's going on, you know what I mean? All of that, it just was just staring me in the face, and it was impossible to ignore anymore. So one thing that in particular that I found interesting, it was one of the first things that I found in my research actually, was a common symptom is stimming, which, remember this thing I was talking about? This is something that I do. I don't know if I've done it in videos before, because again, I'm not sure if I've needed to, because making videos is a very extreme comfort zone for me. It's extreme comfort zone. I don't think it could get more comfort zone than making videos. It's very soothing to me. In fact, making videos, you could say, is my stim. And if you don't know what stimming is, it's a self-soothing gesture. So I guess making videos wouldn't be a stim because it's not a gesture, but anyway. It's a self-soothing gesture for when you start to feel anxious or stressed from overstimulation or overload or just anything, really. So I do that in situations where I tend to not be comfortable, and I start to like have a little tiny mind panic. Like, I'll do this too. I kind of do like a finger rubby doodle, but for the most part I kind of do this, and I do that. That's something I do. And again, I don't think that I would have felt the need to do it in videos, because I'm extremely comfortable when I'm making videos. It was just when I brought this topic up, because I was nervous to talk about the topic, that came up, and I didn't even realize that I did it until I saw myself in the monitor, and I was like, oh, there it is, there's the stimming. Another thing that I thought was interesting was this right here. This is a Coca-Cola Cherry Coke Lip Smacker Lip Balm, okay? Now, I will tell you, JJ's a witness, I spent $40 on the Lip Smacker website to order as many lip balms as I could, because going to the store and getting packs of chapsticks, Burt's Bees, Lip Smackers got annoying. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go on the Lip Smacker website and just order a whole bunch. Hopefully it'll last me a while. I still have a full pack downstairs that I am just about to crack into. Lip balm, this is very significant to me, because another thing I found in my research is, I forget exactly what it's called, but it amounts to a comfort item. A comfort item, I can't remember what exactly they called it, maybe that was what it was, but it amounts to a comfort item. If I don't have a lip balm with me at all times, JJ's a witness to this too, I have one on every single floor, multiple. I won't have just one lip balm out at one time. I have them everywhere, accessible at all times. If I leave the house without a lip balm, like I forget, it rides in my left pocket all the time if I leave the house. But if I somehow forget to grab it, I have to go buy one. I have to. I start to panic if I do not have a lip balm on me at all time. Now, before the lip balm, it was spearmint candies. I used to have to carry spearmints with me all the time. I'm sure Kevin remembers this, actually, because that was the spearmints with him, and quite a ways before him, actually. I remember that all the way back to high school. I had to have spearmint candies with me all the time, and if I started to get anxious, I'd pop a spearmint, and it was like my little comfort thing. And I don't remember when I transitioned into lip balm, but at some point I did, and now that's my comfort item, is the lip balm, and I have to have one around and with me all the time. And if I don't, I have a meltdown. And that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about, the meltdowns. I found out about autistic meltdowns, and it blew my mind because the video that I watched, this woman who had been diagnosed in her late 30s, which if I were diagnosed, it would be, like, if I officially diagnosed, it would be in my late 30s too. And I watched a lot of videos about adults coming to grips with being adult diagnosed, and they just kind of were like, oh my god, my whole life finally makes sense. And that's exactly how I feel. Oh my god, my whole life finally makes sense. Because I am the way that I am, it has to be. It has to be, right? It has to be. So the meltdown thing, again, JJ's a witness. He knows me better than anyone. He's seen all this, and for the record, he's very supportive. He's extremely supportive every time anything happens, and he didn't even know. I didn't even know that autism was a possibility. He just knew that this is how I am, and he accommodates it, and now he's on board, and he will even start to notice stuff anytime I talk about things or say things, and he'll even bring up stuff and ask me questions and be like, you know what, I really think that you are. I really think that you are. And I'm just like, yeah, me too, dude. Like, nothing hasn't lined up yet. Like, there hasn't been one thing that hasn't lined up yet. It's like a perfect fit. It's so crazy. But anyway, so the meltdown thing, I'm sorry. The routine. This has come up the most with JJ because he's extremely social. He's an extrovert. He likes to spontaneously invite people over out of nowhere. Nobody else ever did that, so it's not something that I ever had to deal with. But with him, it's not a conscious thing, and it took a long time for him to understand that I wasn't rallying against him having a social life or having people over at our house. It was more the abrupt, hey, do you mind if I have somebody over? And I would just go, ugh. Like, I need time. I need to know ahead of time if my routine is going to be disrupted. And I've noticed that at work too, where I've gone to work expecting the day to be a certain day because my days are very routine, specifically by day at my job. If one thing is not what it's supposed to be, I have a meltdown. And a meltdown is not a tantrum. Like some people seem to think that meltdown is equated, is that a word, with a tantrum, like a toddler throws, like screaming and freaking out and crying and all that stuff. Now, it can mean crying, and I guess meltdowns are different for everybody, autistic meltdowns specifically. But the woman's video that I was watching where she was describing an autistic meltdown, it lined up so perfectly. It was ridiculous because, like, she's like, yeah, if your routine gets disrupted, you have a meltdown. If something unexpected happens when you had the plan, like, planned out in your head, and the road curves at the last second, you have a meltdown. If you get overstimulated, sensory overload, you have a meltdown. And I'm just like, yeah, because it's just something that just happens. Like, I don't get mad and throw a tantrum and get angry at whoever changed it or whatever. It's just a brain explosion of, oh my god, I can't handle this. And it's just this massive, like, anxiety, panic explosion thing that takes me a while to get out of. It's annoying. And a thing that I do a lot is when it comes to sensory overload. And I noticed this because she mentioned this specifically in her video about it. She's like, sensory overload, if you do this. And I went, oh my god, that is 100% what I do all the time. Like when JJ wants to go hang out at a bar and like meet a friend or whatever, and I go with him, 10 minutes in that place, the music, the clinking of the glasses, the conversation, the screeching, the loudness, the weird axe game that they have with its stump. I don't know what the hell they're doing over there, but it's very loud and very annoying. Like the pool tables, you know, the dartboard, the little casino games that they have, just all the sounds. And I described this to JJ too, and I said the way that I hear sounds is I hear every individual sound on its own, but also it all blends together into this just cacophony of, you know. So I don't know how I hear just a big disruptive, you know, white noise sound, but also each individual sound. That doesn't make any sense to me, because you should think it'd be like one way or the other, right? But no, it's both, and I don't know how. And it's always been that way too. Like when I was in high school, I couldn't eat lunch in the cafeteria. I always got a pass from my band director to go to the band room during lunch, because the cafeteria was so loud. It was just like, it would just give me an anxiety attack, and I would have to do this, like I just had to, that doesn't even do anything. It's not like it blocks out the sound. In fact, when I do that, it makes sound louder because it blocks out the ambient sound that's at least providing a cushion of white noise. But when I do this, I more emphatically hear the emphatic sounds, and it makes it worse, and it really drives me nuts. So this doesn't actually, it's not even functional. It's just something that I have to do, and I do that a lot when we go to the bars, and I did that a lot in high school before I started leaving the cafeteria for lunch. So yeah, just that is an example. Like it all lines up. It all lines up. There's so many more examples, and I could talk about this forever, and I can't even remember every examples, but I mean, like, adult autism is difficult to diagnose, apparently, because we have grown and into society already. We're not in the developmental stage as children where it's easy to see their developmental stages aren't connecting or aren't typical, you know, for socially developing children, you know, as they should be. So it's easier to see the signs, you know, when a kid is still going through that development. But as an adult, we've already learned how to fake our way through society and life and social situations, and we've learned to adapt. We've learned to mask. That's what it's called, masking. It's essentially faking your way through everything to appear normal, and you can even fool yourself. So adults have learned to do that, so it's difficult to diagnose, because unless you can remember your childhood and think, yes, I was this way, yes, I was this way, yes, I was this way, it's difficult, because you can fool, not on purpose, but I mean your ability, you know, because you've gotten so good at faking it, at masking, if you will, just to make it through life, because you get tired of feeling so different and looking weird and looking awkward, and, you know, because you've been trained when you're growing up that these are acceptable social behaviors, and if you don't accommodate that mindset, you know, if you don't feel like you fit it, you're encouraged to do it anyway. So you're sort of forced into that lifestyle, whether you really fit it or not, or are even really capable of it. So you just kind of learn to do it. Like personally, for me, when it comes to social interaction, eye contact, major problem. My therapist in high school pointed that out, actually. I could not tell you for the life of me what that man looked like. I never once looked at him. He pointed that out. He was like, you have a real problem with eye contact. I said, yes, I do, while staring at the fake plant over by the chair that I was sitting in, right? When I meet new people now, I still have trouble looking them in the eye. It has to be a real surge of comfort to actually make me look somebody in the eye. I don't look restaurant servers in the eye. I only look at coworkers in the eye if I have worked for them for a while and have developed like a comfortable rapport with them. Like there has to be a comfort bubble for me to make eye contact. It's very difficult for me. Like it'll be to the point of where, like, say they're you, right? And I'm here, I'll be talking this way. I can turn my head. I just can't force my eyes to look at them. I just can't do it. It's like a thing. And yeah, so I'm very terrible with eye contact unless I feel comfortable some way because of a prior interaction. You know, like for example, when I met Andy, when we hung out at Barnes & Noble, I had prior interaction with her. Like we spoke on Messenger. I don't think we'd texted yet, maybe, I'm not sure. But we'd spoken before and she watched my videos and I had interaction with her. So like I felt comfortable, like there was an extension there that provided me like an avenue to be able to look at her properly, you know what I mean? But yeah, if it's just like a new person, I just can't do it. I can't look at them, and apparently that is an autism thing. And as far as socializing itself goes, I don't know how to do it. I've talked about this before. I think I put up a Facebook video about it. I don't know how to talk to people, and I know that seems strange because I talk to you guys, but I'm not talking to anyone. No one is responding. I'm not looking at facial expressions to, you know, determine how my words are coming across. I'm talking to a piece of electronic equipment that I can safely edit to my comfort later and release on the internet, again, with my own comfort surrounding that. So when I'm speaking to someone in person, and some of you who have met me, you might have noticed this. I am incredibly weird. I've tried though, I try really hard, but boy does it almost gives me a headache how hard I have to try. In fact, a lot of times it does give me a headache how hard I have to try to mask and force myself to appear not awkward and not socially inept and whatever. And again, it goes so much beyond social anxiety disorder. You know, autism often is misdiagnosed as lots of things. Like I said, depression, social anxiety, bipolar, ADHD, OCD, but those are all factors. They're all facets. Those are all things that can accompany autism. And I have all of those things except for bipolar. I do have OCD tendencies. It drives me absolutely insane if things aren't symmetrical and neat and right side up and like alphabetical order, numerical order, colorized, whatever. It's not like a turn the light switch on and off 15 times or my family's gonna die type of OCD, but it's a very meticulous, I can't leave the room until I fix this pencil because it's slightly askew, you know, kind of like that. That apparently does accompany autism often. It depends on where you're at on the spectrum, and I'm going to talk about the spectrum. It's not a spectrum of down here is mild and up here is severe. It's not a sliding scale. It's like a color wheel, and there's different personality traits that manifest or are affected by it, and it's where you fall on the spectrum that determines how well you do in certain areas versus other areas where you might struggle. That's what the spectrum means. And I learned that through my research because I used to think that it meant mild, severe, and that is not at all what it is. So I don't know where I'm at on the spectrum, but I can function very well as far as having a job, and I can force my way through social interaction if I absolutely have to. But the way that I learned to socialize was I had to memorize, this is gonna sound really stupid, I had to memorize millions of possible scripts, interaction scripts, and I took them from wherever I could get them. I watched a lot of TV shows, and I would memorize what these people did, what one person would say and what this person responded with, what was acceptable, what wasn't acceptable, like what made someone laugh, what made someone cringe or react poorly, you know, what made someone smile, whatever. And I observe. I just observe when people interact so that I can copy it and use that later. And that's how I socialize. So if someone goes off script and I don't have a data file that fits that, I just kind of sit there and go, I don't have that one. It does not compute. 404, file not found. That's literally what happens in my brain. I don't know what to say, and I usually end up bumbling out some weird thing that doesn't make any sense, or I just kind of and just like walk away. I'm sure I appear incredibly awkward to a lot of people. I appear rude to a few people. I've had this is all come to light since I've met JJ, and I know that sounds bad, but it's actually really good because it's given me a scope into my life that I didn't have access to before because I've never been around an extrovert. So by being with an extrovert, he has brought so many new situations and opportunities in my life that have challenged me, and it's made me able to pinpoint and acknowledge and realize these are specific areas in which I struggle. This is why, this is how it plays out. And it was much more helpful in pointing me in the direction of, bitch, you got autism. And I don't like to say have autism, bitch, you are autistic is what I meant to say. And apparently the autism community is very gracious with accepting people who self-identify, self-diagnose, I guess, because diagnoses, like I said, are very difficult to obtain as an adult. There's waiting lists. It's apparently very expensive if you can even find someone qualified to do it or who's willing to do it. So I think I have all the information that I need because, like I said, there hasn't been a speck of research or information that I found so far that does not line up. There hasn't even been one that's been like, that could be me. No, they are all dead on the nose. It's actually kind of mind-blowing. I've spoken about this with Kevin. He agrees, and he's like, that would actually explain a lot about us and our relationship and our friendship over the years. That all makes sense from my end. You have my seal of approval. I spoke to my mom about it. She agrees too. She's like, oh, come to think about it, when you were a kid, you were very, very literal and analytical, and you didn't have a fanciful mind. Like, you know, I had an imagination, like I could pretend, you know, I would sit on a rock and pretend I was in a house and there was a kitchen and a bedroom and stuff. But like when it came to things about the world, I was extremely literal and technical. And my dad pointed that out. I think there's a video of me actually correcting him on some word or some subject or something. And I was like 4 years old. And he's like, oh, so you're getting technical on me. And I was like, I'm getting technical. But that was how I did. Like, I remember my parents arguing. I think I must have been 3 or 4 because they were still together. They divorced when I was 4. And I was, you know, this tall. So I was eye level with the price tags. And they were in the grocery store and they were arguing over about which, I don't know, can of peas, I don't remember what it was, to get. And my mom would say like, okay, but this one's $2. And my dad was like, yeah, but this one's $3. And they were going back and forth about which one to get because one was $2 and one was $3. And being eye level with the price tags, I was looking at them and I saw $1.95, $2.95. And I said, and for some reason I understood money, I think because my dad taught me, but yeah, apparently I understood money because I did like a little tuggy thing and I was like, this is not $2, it is $1.95. This is not $3, this is $2.95. And I was dead serious. You know, I wasn't like confused, I wasn't being cute. I was literally like, guys, you are incorrect, you know? And I did that oftentimes. My mom had, of course I had a pacifier, you know, and she handed me off to my grandma one time with the pacifier. And mom liked to call it my bow bow. She's like, oh yeah, Leah has her bow bow. And I actually remember this. My mom and my grandma both have told me the story over again, but I actually do remember it. My grandma, like, I guess the thing fell on my mouth or she wanted to get it for me or something. And my grandma's like, oh, hey, here's your bow bow. And apparently what I said was, mom calls it my bow bow, but I call it my pacifier. So I know those are just small, strange examples that maybe any kid could do, but I remember challenging things that I learned and not just accepting them for what they were and being, I remember being analytical when I was 3, 4, 5 years old. Like, I remember it. I can't figure out how I was when I didn't have the vocabulary to like mull it over in my head, yet I did. And I remember that. I actually remember it. And JJ actually came home recently and he just, out of the blue, he asked me like, did you babble when you were a baby? Like, you know, bah, 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 bah. And I was like, I don't think so. I think I was extremely quiet, actually. I was like dead silent unless I had something specific to convey, and then I would use my vocabulary to the best of my ability. Like, I didn't go bah, 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 bah. Like, I would actually use the words that I thought were appropriate to convey whatever I needed to say. And that's it. Like, otherwise I was silent. And he goes, okay. And I was like, why? And by the way, I confirmed that with my mom, and she said, yes, you are right. That is exactly how it was. So I asked her, I'm like, why? And he said, well, apparently a baby or child not babbling is one of the first signs of autism, because that is the first developmental stages of socializing, of communicating, of finding your voice, if you will. And autism is a social disorder, disability, I guess. It's in that arena. It mostly comes down to social difficulties. So apparently that was the very first indicator, but people missed it. They didn't see it. And I don't fault my parents for that at all. They had a lot going on, especially my mom. And, but yeah, apparently, yeah. And I remember doing and saying a lot of things that I didn't see fault in, but other people found strange. And for that, I was often ostracized, often. And I couldn't understand why, because to me it made sense. I'm like, I'm just saying what it is, the way it is. Why are you being weird? But apparently I was the weird one. So I don't know. And I still do that. Weird, inappropriate things still fall out of my mouth. And then I realize, oh God. But see, I realize because I've memorized those scripts. And I know that I just went off script. So that means it's weird. So my brain does not work neurotypically. We're gonna use that word. I'm definitely neurodivergent, but I really, really believe that it's autism. It can't be anything else. It just can't. Nothing else lines up as letter perfectly as autism. So I did make an appointment with my doctor to potentially obtain a referral for an official adult autism diagnosis. Now, I don't know how that's going to go. I am seeing my doctor in a month. I'll keep you guys updated if you want. And if you want me to keep talking about this, I will. It's a subject that I find very, very interesting, which is another thing about autism. When you are interested in something, you become extremely interested, rabbit hole interested, and that is exactly how I am too. I'm not just like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, no. That's cool. I must learn everything about it now. And it's like an obsessive thing, right? So yeah, it all lines up. And I know that there's lots of other things that I wanted to mention and bring up and compare and talk about with how I fit into this. But there's just so many, I can't even think of any other ones right now, because there's just so many. It's unreal. It also kind of coincides with me not understanding a lot about why people do the things that they do. Like, I have never understood why people are susceptible to advertising and peer pressure. Like when we used to watch those videos in school, like, oh yeah, don't do drugs and don't let people peer pressure you into doing drugs and all this. And like the whole, like, if all of your friends jumped off a cliff, would you do it? I was always like, what? Why would you do that? Like, of course I'm not going to do drugs because I don't want to, and why would what anybody else says have any bearing on what I choose to do? That's weird. I'm like, did people really need to be told this? Like, I just never understood that, and I never understood advertising either. I'm just like, I'm aware that Doritos exist. If I want them, I'll buy them. Why did you spend, $8 million on a 30-second commercial, with like Britney Spears in it, and you think that that's going to make me want to run out and buy a bag of Doritos? Like, I don't understand. I've never been susceptible to sales pitches either. I know what I want. I know what I'm there to do. I know what I'm there to get. You telling me anything other than what I've decided already for myself, it does nothing. It bounces off. It's like water off a duck's back. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why? Like, I just don't understand. And I don't know if that's an autism thing. That's not something I've come across yet in my research, but I feel like that is part of it, because I've always been really literal and really like matter of fact, and I've decided this, and that's it. Like, I'm flexible when it comes to obviously like compromising with a friend or family member or, JJ or something. Like, that's not what I mean. I just mean, like, if I know that I don't want to drink, I'm not going to. And you trying to get me to do it is actually just gonna make me mad. It's gonna make me hate you. I'm never gonna take a drink just because you're trying to force me to. In fact, I'm just gonna hate you and not want to ever see you again. So like, I've never understood the peer pressure or the, you know, ooh, come to do this. You know, I'm like, what? Like, okay. So I just never got that, you know. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, there were a lot of other things, just little things here and there that just made sense. It made my whole life, suddenly make sense, because my whole life I felt like something wasn't quite right, but I thought I was just different in my own little weird way because of maybe my upbringing, maybe my interests. I didn't know. I didn't have a solid ground to stand on when it came to why am I like this, until I met JJ, because I was exposed to so many things that I was never exposed to before, and I was never put up against it to like really examine it and then bounce things off of him, because I can ask him, because, you know, he's normal. He can socialize his ass off. So I can ask him things like, why do you do this? Why do you say this? What's the appropriate way to respond to this? You know, like, how do you know what I mean? Like, if he's sick of it, he hasn't shown it. He's more than happy to talk things over with me and help be my gateway into the neurotypical world. Because I just don't know a lot of things and didn't realize I didn't know them until I was faced with them. But now looking back and all of the struggles that I've had, mostly with social scenarios, and just the way that I think and the way that I view the world in my own weird little way, it just makes sense. And it's a little, actually it's quite comforting for it to all make sense finally and have a solid foundation and reason for why I am the way I am. I've always wanted to put a name to it because I always felt like there was something. I never would have imagined it was autism, though. But now I can't see it any other way. It's so obvious now. I'm surprised it took me this long to notice and even consider that. And I don't know why nobody else noticed. But again, it's really hard to notice in adults, and no one caught it when I was a kid. I don't know. Teachers just didn't pay much attention when I was a kid or something, you know. I don't know. And again, I don't fault my parents. They had their own stuff going on. They sure did. That's what I wanted to talk about. If you want me to talk more about this as I go, and as I think of more things to say about it, let me know. I have a strong feeling that a lot of my viewers are also neurodivergent because we seem to have a lot in common. I've noticed. I think that's cool. I think it's cool that we can share this little nook of neurodivergence together, and I finally know what's wrong with me. But it's very comforting to know that. Again, I haven't had an official diagnosis, but I would be very surprised, and everyone around me, everyone I've talked to about this, would be very surprised if I was told that I didn't have autism, that I wasn't autistic, rather. Because it fits like a glove. And that's not just my opinion. That's Mom, Kevin, JJ, the people who know me the best in the whole world. They had the same moment that I did, that light bulb moment of, that makes sense. So I'm gonna go with it. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks for listening to me talk for this long. I hope y'all are doing well. Leave me your thoughts and anything in the comments below, and if you also suspect that you're autistic, or if you are autistic or any kind of neurodivergent anything, let's talk about it. Tell me what you got to say. Tell me your own experience. I'm very fascinated by this now. I have been. This is the first time I decided to bring it to the camera and bring it to the YouTubes. So, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna lay down. Maybe read a book. I don't know. Do something. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much. Watch out for the sheep as always. Vlog phrase of the day is right foot gas, left foot brake. I am not weird. It makes sense, okay? There's two and you have 2 feet. It makes sense, okay? All right. I'll see y'all later. Okay, bye.